Good morning, everyone, or good afternoon, depending on where you are. This is Gary Allen, and welcome to our webinar today called The Best-in-Class Law Firm, How to Find and Hire the Best Lawyers. So this is an ALA, Association of Legal Administrators webinar for CLM credits. So this is worth one human resource credit as indicated on the slide here. So we'll handle all of that paperwork when we're done. I did want to just say a couple of words about ALA because it's one of our favorite organizations at Lean Law. I know our speaker today is also deeply involved. So if you are not an ALA member, this is a great place to develop a community with legal administrators, as well as get great educational materials like you have today and many, many others. So if you're interested in ALA membership, just say so in the chat and we'll connect you with the appropriate ALA chapters. So let me just tell you a little bit about me to get this started. I'm a 35-year practicing lawyer. I just retired earlier this year. And in the process, I experienced a lot of pain in my practice, especially having two firms implode while I was there early in my career. I was fortunate to land with an exceptional law firm after that, which has given me a real passion to help make law firms into better businesses. Along the way, I founded Lean Law, which is a legal billing software company, which can help you on your way to top financial performance. I'm really excited today to have with us Dr. Sharon Abrahams. She is a real pro when it comes to helping law firms and lawyers improve their productivity and profitability. She has got a ton of HR experience in hiring, which we're going to talk about today. As you can see here, she has an extensive resume with the highest level in the profession on these issues. Sharon, do you want to just say a word or two to introduce yourself?
With pleasure. First of all, had I known we were going to talk about ALA, I would have run and gotten all my ALA pins so I could wear them up. When I do ALA webinars, I always wear my pins all the way up. And, oh my gosh, in like 1 year, I'll get my 35-year pin for ALA.
Wow.
So I am very much an advocate for ALA. I'm also an ALA ambassador, and I help with new members and all of that. And if you're not a member of ALA, I cannot stress enough the value that you will get from an ALA membership, and go to the conferences because they're a lot of fun. But aside from that, I spent almost 30 years in law firms. And before COVID, I had created Legal Talent Advisors, and I do a lot of law firm programming, one-on-one coaching with lawyers, with staff as well. And like you, I just want to make the profession a better place for lawyers and for admin staff and the professional leadership. That's my goal in life.
Awesome. Thank you, Sharon. So what we're gonna do today is I'm gonna give a little bit of a briefing at the beginning, just so we kind of all have a common base of understanding about law firm financial performance. So talking about the people, product, and process of top financial performance. Then we'll talk about the key financial metrics that separate a best-in-class financial performance from average. And then we'll go into the hiring processes, finding the people who are going to help your firm to produce at the highest level. So what those three P's are people, product, and process. And this isn't unique to law firms at all, but this is just a convenient way to categorize at least what I have seen about what it takes to become a top performing law firm. And for people, we're really going to be talking a lot about culture today and how you create that culture of high performance, about compensation, and about a proper succession plan, because who wants to work for a law firm where it ends when the founder retires? Then you have product, creating the right offerings and pricing, the right products and services, et cetera. Then there is a process or processes that you need in your law firm. Low overhead is very important. The right technology footprint, and then documenting and following your processes. So there's a lot in there. And obviously we're only covering a little bit of it today, but that's kind of the big picture of what it takes. In order to flesh all of this out, we've created what we call a best-in-class mid-sized law firm webinar series. And this is the fourth month that we have put those on. Early on, we talked about a financial report card and some of the things we're going to talk about in a second here. We have done a few webinars on alignment and incentives, your compensation system. Then we had a great webinar last month with Misty Murray of Aero Consultants about how to get the most out of Microsoft 365 for your firm. And today we're talking about people, and next month we'll be talking about people and how to find them and how to retain them. Then in December and January, going to move back to technology, talk about security. Got some great speakers on AI in January, including Dennis Garcia from Microsoft, who's at the leading edge of Microsoft Copilot. And then in February and March, we're going to talk about how to upgrade your products and services, how to keep your clients and the right sort of finding and keeping clients, marketing in essence, and then some more leadership topics toward the middle of the year. So we've got a lot, we want to give you a comprehensive program for creating top performance, and today's webinar is part of that. So what is this best-in-class performance I'm talking about? So let's just talk for a second about how law firms make money. Fortunately, that's pretty simple. So it's revenue minus overhead equals profit. And there are 5 elements of profit. What's your capacity? How much, if you're fully occupied, can you produce? The utilization of that time. How much of it is actually used to help clients? Realization, how much of that can you bill? Collection, how much of it do you collect? And then your overhead relative to your revenue. You want that number as low as you can. So that's what those elements are. So let's talk about what's at stake there, because I think this is important and not well understood. Let's assume we've got 2 identical lawyers. One is average for these key metrics. The other's a top performer. So what's the difference? And I'm using, the best industry statistics we could find. So we're going to assume that the capacity is the same for these 2 lawyers. In another phase of this, you can say, okay, how can we increase that capacity and decrease the hours that it takes to get there? But just starting with the same capacity, let's say it's 1,800 billable hours times $300 an hour, which is pretty typical. So an average lawyer has, so those, you start at $540,000 in capacity. The utilization rate in an average firm, which I did not believe when I saw it, was only 45% versus about 70 to 80 in a top firm. So the billable time that you get in an average firm is about 325,000 versus over 500,000 in the best in class. So much to be done in terms of utilizing the capacity in your firms in many cases. Realization now for an average law firm is 82% versus 95% in a best in class firm. You get an even bigger gap, $265,000 versus $478,000. Looking at the collection rates, 89% is average in a mid-sized firm, 95% in best in class. The gap becomes even larger there, 450 versus 230,000. And now if we look at overhead as a percentage of revenue, in an average firm, that's 50%. In a best-in-class firm, it can be 30% or less. So when the bottom line, your profit before distributions, is only $118,000 in an average firm, $318,000 in a best-in-class firm. So what does that mean? So the difference financially is $200,000 a year between these firms. Add that up over the course of a 40-year career, you're talking about $8 million in difference per lawyer for whether you adopt best-in-class financial approaches or not. Just to illustrate this a little different way, if you look at an average firm, you've got a lot of unused capacity. That's the biggest opportunity. You've got a little bit you can do to improve your realization and your collection, you're writing time down, uncollected bills. Interestingly, overhead is about the same, but it's out of proportion, right? You're spending way too much on overhead relative to your profit in this firm. So that's the second big opportunity. So that's the financial part of it. What's the human part of it? For lawyers, if you are in a best-in-class firm, you have a lot more freedom. In many ways, you're likely to have a happier practice, in my experience, and a very different retirement when you've got $8 million more to work with. And for the managers, it's going to help you retain your best people. You're going to be more secure and satisfying work for you, and a really different understanding of your value as an administrator if you can help a firm become a top performer. So for those, think about this. Every year you wait, can you afford to burn $200,000? And not very many people I know can. So if you want a little more information about how your firm is performing, we're going to give you a way to download our financial report card after the webinar and see where your firm rates as far as these things go. Okay, so that's a quick tour through this. Now for the main event. We're going to ask Sharon some questions here about best-in-class hiring. And I wanted to start with the idea about culture. So the big question here is, what is the importance of culture in hiring, and how can law firms assess their cultural fit in the interview process? I want to break that down just to begin with. So what is culture in a law firm? What are we talking about here?
Right. That's a good place to start, because I think a lot of people hear the word culture and they say, yeah, I know my firm's culture. I've got it. Um, so there are actual companies out there that do cultural assessments and will help you understand what your culture is. If you've never done one, you could do one or not. You don't have to spend the money on it. A really good way to learn about the culture of your firm is to ask the people who work in your firm.
Mm-hmm.
I tell lawyers when they're the interviewee, right? They're the one looking for a job. Ask everybody you meet in the law firm to describe the culture of the firm. And if everyone says the same thing, that's a good sign. If everyone says something different, that's a bad sign, because then there is no culture to the firm. Every little practice group has its own culture, or every office has its own culture. So, what is culture? Culture is based on the reality of how people work together, not the core values that somebody sat in a room and created the 5 core values of our firm and published them on their website and have them posted in the lunchroom. That's not your culture. Your culture is the day-to-day, how people work well together and how cohesive they are. Do they work as a team? Is it, law firms can be eat what you kill type of law firm. They could be collaborative law firms. And we look at the lawyer side of a law firm and the admin side of a law firm. How is the culture in each side? And then how does the culture come together right? So all of
Yeah.
this plays into what is the culture of a law firm. And every single law firm is uniquely different. So you cannot say, oh, I've worked in a law firm before, so I know exactly what it's going to be like. You might know some of the bits and pieces, but you will not know the culture till you're there and you're working with it.
Yeah. I mean, you can hope that the things that you put on the lunchroom wall are going to match up with the culture. And if you're cultivating cultivating it, hopefully those things connect. But
That's the next session, how to retain, because
yeah,
that's exactly
okay.
what we
Yes,
talk about
that's
that.
right. So stay tuned for more on that.
So, right. So
So,
my first question, I previewed the next session. So there you go.
absolutely. Yes. So what are the best practices for creating a culture in a law firm or for cultivating it apart from
Cultivating it.
whatever? Yeah.
Actually, the exercise of creating core values and all of that is really a great place to start in a law firm and to have those. But then to your point, and this is highlighting a little bit of next time, you have to talk about it all the time. You have to breathe it. You have to believe in it. So my very first law firm culture, the unwritten culture was, and don't be offended. I hope nobody's offended by this. It was a sweatshop. All right.
Mm,
We're
mm,
talking 1990s, right? And
hmm.
that law firm was already at 2,200 hours to get,
Oof.
to get bonuses and 2,400 hours to get high bonuses. They lived and breathed that with pride. You
Hmm.
went there, you worked your butt off. They had amazing clients. I used to say they worked hard and they played hard. This was a firm that had a lot of fun. We did fun activities and fun, they had a band with the attorneys were all in a band and they perform. And it was so they lived it and they breathed it and they talked about it and they brought you in. There was no secret handshake. Everybody knew that this is what they were getting
Right.
into,
Hmm.
right? So you cultivate it by talking about it. If you're a firm, a family first firm, you talk about family first all the time, and then you
Hmm.
live those words. Somebody is ill, somebody needs to live to take leave to take care of a sick kid or a sick parent. They don't get any flack for it. Then they believe your family first. The firm says that they embrace diversity and inclusiveness, but there's people who are not being given work and all that, then they're not living what
Right.
they're saying. So it's that walk the talk. Remember that from I
Hmm.
don't know what consultant came up with that a million years ago? Walk the talk. It's when what you say and what you do are aligned.
Very
That's
nice. Very nice. So what is the importance of culture in helping the right lawyers in finding the right lawyers and helping the right lawyers find you?
right, right. It's and you're going to ask me a question about brand a little bit later.
Yes.
It's it's when you know what your culture is and you know what the values are that you have in the interview process, we'll talk about questions. You ask the questions that bring that forward. And so, a lot of highlights in ads, nobody does ads anymore, but when
Hmm.
you post something online, international law firm doing M&A work, blah, 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 blah. That's nothing. That's nothing.
Yeah, exactly. That
That's
drives me
past.
crazy.
But a well-oiled, team-focused firm looking for do you see? It's the way you describe your firm. It's how you
Hmm.
talk about your firm. Now, here's the problem, and this is not to be disparaging on anybody who's on the call, but some law firms don't have good cultures. Surprise!
Right. Right. Well,
And you don't wanna advertise that.
and I will say that when I started as a lawyer, I had no idea what a culture in a law firm was and what I was looking for, except as like, okay, I want to find some people I want to work with.
Right,
But I mean, one of the things that makes this hard, in my opinion, is there is no business training whatsoever in law schools.
right,
So you just come out and go, okay, I'm going to practice law. I don't even really know what that means. Uh,
right.
but, and I certainly don't know what it's like to work in a law business and
Right.
how that works.
So it's interesting because years ago I wrote an article uh, for people looking to go into law firms,
Yes.
understanding law firm culture. But it's like we could name firms that everybody's heard of. So I'm not going to name them, but they're the big
Mhm.
firms, the big law firms. Everybody knows, and they have opinions about those firms and the way those firms are. Right? There's terms that we use in law. In the ALA, we don't have a lot of members of those firms
Mhm.
as part of the ALA. It's more small and mid-size that are part of this, part of this audience. And so we'd have no clue what your culture is because you're not out there with the, in the press and all of that. So you build your culture by talking about it internally. You look at Glassdoor and all those other websites that people go to and that they write things about your firm. You Google the firm name and see if anybody's written anything about it. If you're out in the community and you're supporting the golf tournament and the baseball team, and they see you at the the chili cook-offs, that's your culture. That's you're showing the world who you are as a firm. And so you have to build it. It's like you can't just say, "Okay, we're changing the culture of our firm."
Right.
The
Right.
culture comes from the top. The saying, the fish stinks from the head, right?
Ah.
The culture comes from the top. I don't know where that comes from, but I've heard it a million times.
I, I'm going to tell my managing partner that. That's
So when you look at how your firm is managed and run and the philosophy that those leaders have, that's your culture.
right.
Right? So that firm I
Mhm.
told you about that was the sweatshop, when I joined that firm in 1992, you worked on the weekends, you worked every night, you were there, but the managing partner, the name partner on the door, he was there too, walking the halls, and he would stop in your office and say, "Hey, how's your kid?" "Did they do
Yeah.
well?" Because he knew everyone. And so the culture was embraced because we just worked really fast, really hard, make miracles happen.
That's
And then
right.
we went out for happy hour, and it was okay. It was okay.
Work hard, play hard. Right.
Yeah,
That
that
was
was the culture. Yeah,
very much 1992.
yeah, right. It was.
So let's turn that around for a second and talk about how do you assess a cultural fit in the interview
Yeah,
process?
I'm sorry, you did ask me that question. I apologize. I missed it completely.
No.
All right. So, I think I began to say it's the type of questions that you ask. So, if you are a eat what you kill firm, everybody sort of in it for themselves. They have to do their own work. Associates have to go out and free market and ask partners for the work. Then you need to interview asking the questions. How do you like to receive work? Do you wait for a partner to hand you work? Do you like being part of that type of team? Or are you a go getter and you'll say, "Oh, I look like I'm going to be done with this project by Wednesday. So by Tuesday night, I'm going to be knocking on the partner's door or calling them if you're a virtual firm or emailing them to get more work." So by asking the right questions, you can get a sense. If you're a very collaborative firm, you ask questions about how do they enjoy working on a team? Have they previously, if it's a lateral, right? It depends on if you're hiring a first year versus somebody who's worked someplace else. And lateral, I don't mean just partners, I mean lateral as an
Mhm.
associate. What was the last firm that you worked with like? What type of teamwork did they have? That's if you're a team focused firm. So you have to come up with the questions that mirror your culture and then ask those questions. Do you enjoy happy hours? Did you go to happy hours at your old firm? Oh God,
Right.
no, I no, I go home and be with my kids. Okay, then that lets you know that when your firm does happy hour every Thursday at 4:30, that this person isn't going to want to be a part of that. That will impede their assimilation into the firm, right? So you have to investigate your culture and behaviors within your firm and then ask very specific questions around that.
Okay. So this is a little outside of this question, but the way you answered that brought this up, like, who are you envisioning is interviewing these candidates? Is it, is that a managing partner? Is that a hiring partner? Is that everybody? is that the admin?
Right.
Who should engage in
All right.
the hiring, especially the interview process?
Right. Right. It's a very good question. Depending on the size of the firm, you may or may not have a person with the title of recruiter, right? Larger firms have recruiting departments and all of that. So a lot of times the recruiting first level recruiting falls on the admin person to post the jobs and to get all that. And so resumes are going to come in. So you have your first level that might be the administrative person. And in your firm, you may also do a phone interview as a first interview, just to make sure the person, sounds cohesive on the phone and all that. And now we're doing a lot of video, so you get a visual
Hmm.
image of the person, make sure they're, brush their hair that day for the interview, because that tells you a lot about a person. If they didn't bother to put a coat and tie on, even on a video interview, right? It's still an interview. So that's could be the very first level, or that first level might be delegated to maybe an associate that's involved in the hiring, especially if it's other lower level associates. But in the interview process, it has to be somebody in the practice group, whether it's the practice group leader or somebody anointed by the practice group leader. There's always in groups the people person of the group. So
Hmm.
whoever that people person of the group, they should be part of the interview process. Especially if there's no admin person doing a first level, this is what that person would do. If the admin person has, narrowed it down to 4 people, then it would go to this next level for the people person in the department
Hmm.
or practice area, whatever your terminology is, right? Then that person would ask more in-depth questions about the work, right? The
Hmm.
first level might be cultural fit, and the second level would be the actual practice. Do they have the skills in the area that you're looking for? Once they've gone past that level, then whether it's a hiring partner or the head of the group, whoever is hiring needs to be a part of it. The question is, do you bring in a managing partner? I am sorry, but I do a lot of coaching with managing partners. They are too busy. If
Mm,
it's partner
good point.
level,
Hmm.
100%, they must interview partners. But at the associate level, the managing partner, if the other 2 levels are well trained, they don't need to take the time to do that. Maybe when it's down to the last candidate that we want to hire this person, then maybe you could say, will you meet them for a cup of coffee or over lunch, just to make sure they're a good fit for our firm? You could do that as a courtesy, but sometimes the managing partners, they won't admit this. They don't want to be bothered. It's the third year associate that's going to work in your department. I don't really care. They're not going to say that out
Mm,
loud, but when I coach them one-on-one, they say, I don't have time for this, Sharon.
yeah, yeah, interesting. So, really quickly, my firm at one time had a process where you had to meet everyone in the firm, and everyone had a blackball on that applicant. What do you think about that?
Well, if your firm only has 10 people in it, why not? Because you're really bringing somebody into the fold. But if you have a firm that has 15 lawyers, really? Really? Maybe
Uh,
maybe you wanna do it for the practice group and you have 3
mhm.
or 4 people within the practice group. Yeah, I think that's okay to take that person out to lunch, for the whole practice group to meet that person. But I have been in rooms where I was interviewed by I walk in a room and there's a dozen people in the room interviewing me.
Uh,
That is so overwhelming, but boy, it told me a lot about that firm, didn't it?
yeah, it sure did.
Right,
Yeah,
right.
exactly.
And so in some cases, it's a very positive, in some cases, it could turn the, potential candidate off, and there's a cultural thing. If you
Right.
if you want everybody to interview and that candidate doesn't like it, they're probably not a good culture. By the way, I took that job at that firm that had 12 people interview me
Nice,
because
nice.
I am a collaborative person.
Hmm.
So, again, it goes to your culture. Does everybody wanna say or not? And if they say, "Yeah, we do," then do it.
Uh,
But not necessarily one-on-one, or you
yeah,
do
exactly.
like, OCI, on campus interviewing, where it's like 20 minutes, 20 minutes, 20 minutes, 20
Right.
minutes,
Hmm.
so that you're not taking too much time.
Speed dating. Yeah.
Speed
Okay.
dating, yeah.
All right. Well, we've gotten all the way through question number one. We might let's see how we're going to do here. Um, The next question's about evaluating resumes, and the way I would characterize this is just what does a great lawyer resume look like?
All right. So I teach a lot of people about resumes. I do a lot of work at law schools as well and help
Hmm.
them through the process. So I always tell people on a resume when they're creating it. So this is reverse psychology. I'm telling you what to look for. Um, is not your job description, but achievements. So when you read a
Mm,
resume, and let's pick a fourth year associate, right? You're looking, you want they were trained by somebody else, and you want to bring them on because they already know how to practice law, and you don't want to be worried about the training. So that fourth year associate might just list, I analyzed, I prepared, all those
hmm.
action words. But what you want to look for is, and they may not know this, so these are the questions you're going to ask. Will you say here that you were actually doing depositions? Did they say they were first chairing the depositions? Were they helping to prepare for the depositions, right? Were they defending depositions?
Right.
What in that? So I always tell people, write specifically, first chaired 13 depositions, right?
Hmm.
Second chaired one trial. Like I always tell them to be quantitative and or helped client win multi-gazillion dollar settlement, right? Right. So I always want
Got it. Right. Hmm.
quantity because that's what is it? We talk about KPIs, right? If you can't measure it, you can't fix it. If you can't measure it, you don't really know how good somebody is. So in a
Hmm.
good resume, you're looking for achievements. That's really the bottom line here for achievements, not job descriptions. You have a job description that you're giving them
Right.
for the hiring process. You want to see what have they achieved. And if they don't have it on the resume and you like the resume, just generally, then you need to ask those questions in the interview process. But also on a resume, a couple more things. One, looking at their schooling, right? Obviously, was there breaks in school? Were there breaks in their employment? Did they summer someplace? Um, and ask them about all of those things. What was the most interesting course that you took in law school? We know that law school doesn't teach any lawyer how to be a lawyer. It doesn't do that. So you might ask, well, you say here that you took real estate classes in law school. How much real estate work did you do? How many closings did you do? Like jump and ask questions
Right. Hmm.
looking for the quantitative. Look in the resume if they choose to put any personal information in it, which I tell people not to bother with. But if they say, love tennis, love reading, love cooking. What do these things have in common? Well, tennis you play with just one other person, reading you do alone, cooking you may or may not cook with somebody else. Is this person a loner? If they
Mm,
had love basketball, was in sports, team sports, they're more likely to be a sports person. That's if they write something personal. If you look at their extracurricular activities, if they're young and they've put in, the university things that they've done or law school things they've done, were they active in clubs or organizations? Were they in leadership roles or were they just members of something? If they were the president of pick a legal fraternity or sorority or legal group, that's great. They might have leadership skills, which every law firm wants, and they're lawyers. So you have to really look at the resume and sort of tear it apart and figure
right.
out what do these things mean. Sometimes in resumes, people divulge, and I use that word, gender and race and religion.
Hmm.
Perfectly acceptable for them to do that. Not acceptable for you to ask questions about any of those categories, but you can ask about a leadership role they had in a religious organization. You
Right. Hmm.
can't delve into the illegal topics, but you can always ask about what they've done, what they've accomplished.
Got it. Got it. So what is the resume not going to tell you? So what do you need to be ready to dive into beyond that?
Right. So you have to do behavioral interviewing, right?
Mm,
So I
mm.
see here that you work on a team of you work on a client team that wouldn't be on a resume, never mind. Let me go back. Um, you say in the resume here that you have, done 3 M&A deals. Talk to me about how you handled having to stay overnight in the law firm to get this paperwork done and out the door by 6 a.m.
Mm-hmm.
So that's giving you a little bit of, oh, it was horrible. They treated us like dirt. They didn't even give us pizza. Or, oh my God, it was enthralling and exciting, and we couldn't sleep because we needed to sleep in shifts to get this done, right? How they answer your questions. Uh,
Right.
you can ask a question. The last supervisor that you had, last supervising attorney that you worked with at your firm, tell us what you liked. Tell me what you liked about that supervising attorney and what you didn't like about that supervising attorney. Well, I liked that they gave me a lot of feedback on the quality of work that I did, and they redlined everything and they went through it with me line by line. Is this somebody who's needy? Is this somebody who
Mm,
needs a lot of direction? Is this somebody who's just trying to learn? You have to ask another level question, right?
got it.
If you ask them about a previous employer and they trash the firm, that says something about them.
Mm,
Nobody should ever
right.
trash anybody ever in life, first of all, but then specifically in a job interview, a previous employer. That says something about them.
Right. Right. So the big lesson here is you can get a basic sense of what somebody's achievements are if they've written a good resume. A lot of times you don't get good resumes, which which they just say, I got this degree and
Right.
I'm admitted to these courts. Um, but I love the behavioral interviewing. I think that in my work outside of law, that's been essential for trying to sort people out.
Yep.
All right, I think we're going to continue on that theme. So, what are some of the methods to gauge the skills and capabilities of a candidates that aren't evident on paper? We just talked about behavioral interviewing. Are there others?
So this is a good one. Let's say I keep picking on a fourth year associate, but let's up it. Let's say it's a seventh year associate.
Hmm.
All right. When a seventh or eighth year associate is leaving a law firm, that means they don't feel they're on track for making partner in that law firm. That's a very general statement because every law firm is
Yeah.
different when they make somebody partner. But when somebody at that high level, years of experience is looking, there's a reason. You need to figure out what that reason is. And I'm just going to take a little detour here and talk about
Hmm.
lateral for a second. When a
Hmm.
lateral partner, a single lateral partner, not a group, but a single lateral partner is looking to leave their law firm, there is definitively a reason for that. And a lot of times it's because the law firm is unhappy with them and has asked them or pressured them or given them the smoke signals that they should probably start looking. There's something about that person, not that they're broken, but there was not a good fit with the previous
Hmm.
law firm. Because I have seen people leave law firms. I've coached people to leave law firms and be very successful someplace else. Right. But you need to figure out when it's a lateral, what's really going on. I've also helped a firm that hired a lateral that was a absolute nightmare. And I actually had to tell the firm they need to let that, it was a partner, had to let that
Yeah.
partner
Yeah.
leave before she actually caused a lawsuit, a discriminatory lawsuit within the firm. I then went and did research and got more because I did an investigation. She was asked to leave her previous firm
Wow.
because of exactly these things. But nobody thought to ask the administrator of the prior firm. We'd already hired her. So now
Hmm.
it's a done deal. This was not contingent on her being hired. But I went back to that administrator and said, tell me the real story. And in a very following the letter of the law, able to tell me certain things. And I knew it was
Hmm.
going to be a problem. So going back to you have to, it's all about how you question, right? And so you ask very specific questions. So here, assessing beyond this, what's on the resume, ask an attorney. Back to Gary, what you talked about. How many hours do you typically bill? And can you prove to me that you bill those hours? What is your
Hmm.
typical utilization rate monthly?
Hmm.
Right? Right? Because,
Right.
oh, my utilization is 85%. then you know something. If my utilization is 92%, then you know something. They're not putting that on a resume, right?
Exactly.
So any
Exactly.
measurement tool that you use in your firm for your KPIs, your key performance indexes, or to be a best in class law firm, or anything that you're looking at there, then ask those questions. And that's going to give you some skills and understanding. If they say I've done depositions and you say, well, how many depositions have you done by yourself? Have you first chaired a depo? Well, I've really only done one, but I've been in, 15 depositions. Well, but did you speak? Yeah, yeah, yeah. I was allowed to ask 4 questions.
Right.
You know,
Right. That's a
so
different animal.
that's
Right.
right. And so you have to delve into, reading between the lines and asking very specific questions, but asking the hours, the utilization rate, all of that stuff. And they may not
Yeah.
tell you.
Well, and you can ask questions about uh, collection and
Yep.
how
Collection.
much of your time is written off.
Yep. All that.
Yeah. No, and I love tying it back to, to explicit KPIs that the firm has.
Yep.
That's really powerful if the firm has gone to that trouble. Interesting. Um, so I just wanted to ask one follow-up there before we move on, which is how often do you see that when a lateral comes over that it's a problem with their firm and not with the lateral? Because my firm poached a lot of really good laterals because of a better financial
Yeah.
system.
Right. Right. And they left for money. And they knew
Right.
that they would get paid better. That's where you have to go back and ask the questions, were you
Yeah.
getting along? Were you not getting, that's where you ask the question and say, were you getting along? Who in your prior firm did you consider to be a mentor? And explain
Mm-hmm.
that relationship. Who in the prior firm did you have issues with? No names, please. Just describe
Yeah.
it to me and see what
Right.
they say. I actually worked at a law firm with an attorney that was asked to leave that firm, and then I moved years later to another firm, and then my new firm was interviewing that same attorney and hired that same attorney and ended up asking that attorney to leave for exactly the same reason. And it
Oh,
was
wow.
clients didn't pay. He had a
Ah.
lot of little small clients and they never paid.
Mm-hmm.
And I went to the hiring partner at the second firm and I said, "You saw on his resume that he worked at the firm that I came from and you didn't ask me about
Right.
this person." So, in small communities, right? We maybe have worked at other firms. And so if
Yeah.
you see a name and you have a secretary, a paralegal, another attorney, ask, this person worked at that firm. Were you there when that person was there? What's your opinion of this person?
Exactly.
You can throw
Yeah.
that opinion in the garbage, or they might have an opinion. Some people don't play nice in the sandbox, but to your specific question, how often is it that they don't get along with the firm? It's the culture of the firm. They're leaving for a reason. And
Right.
often it's something in that firm isn't supportive of either the needs that they have. They could have needs to make more money, but sometimes it's they're not getting the marketing support they want. They
Mm-hmm.
instead of billing 1,800 hours, they want to bill 1,600 hours, but they want to go market and bring in, work beyond their scope that then they pass out to other people in the firm. And there's value to that. But some law firms don't value that as much as they value the billable hour. So I've seen that where somebody left and did more marketing at their new firm and spread that work around and everybody was happy, and that firm
Yeah.
was willing
Yeah.
to pay that way versus just stick on billable hours. So that'd be really interesting. I should do an article on that and like interview
Yeah. No, I love it.
lateral. Yeah,
Yeah.
that'd be cool to find out.
Very good. So I think we've kind of covered a lot of this. So in my experience, so there's a lot of interviewing that happens. It's about, are you a good lawyer? But that doesn't tell you a whole lot about whether somebody's going to be, well, it tells you something, but not everything you need to know about whether they're actually going to succeed in a private practice. We've talked about this quite a bit, but do you have anything more to offer sort of on how you draw out the the success beyond can you do your job well?
Right. Are they passionate about
Mm,
their job?
yeah.
If somebody
Hmm.
is passionate about the type of law that they practice, they will be successful. If they're not passionate, they'll bill their hours and go home. And so
Right.
find the
Hmm.
level of passion. And this goes for admin people as well. You have a legal assistant who's passionate or paralegal who's passionate. They'll put the time in, they'll do it. They want to be there. They want to have success in their own career as well as the career of people around them. So I think passion is really key. But look at the statistics. I have a client right now where they promoted somebody to income partner at the firm, and then they call me in to start working with the person to get their billable hours up. And I said, "Well, can I have a report of the last 3 years of billable hours?" And they send me the report, and I go back and I said to the managing partner, "Well, wait, this person never billed 1,500 hours. What do you think is gonna change?" "Well, we made them partner." I'm like, "What do you think is gonna change? You made them partner billing 1,200 hours." So
Right.
so so you have to look at previous performance, right? That's you talk about profitability and all this stuff. Previous performance will predict future,
Yeah, no, I
right?
don't know anybody. I don't know a single case where that problem has been fixed by making somebody partner. It
Right,
just makes
exactly.
it worse.
Right.
Very interesting. Yeah. So let's talk about pitfalls. What are the most common mistakes you see in hiring processes, and how do you avoid them?
So right now, we're suffering, the entire profession is suffering from the warm body syndrome because we can't find people. So
Mm,
people are hiring people to put butts in seats because they have work that needs to get done and they're not doing a full assessment of them ahead of time. They're not even interviewing them thoroughly enough. They're not looking at the resume. There's like, we need a body. This person has been doing real estate for 4 years. We have, 50 closings happening. We need the person in the seat. So that is the number one pitfall is that where did all these lawyers go? I have no idea. We used to have more lawyers than we knew what to do with, and now nobody wants to work anymore. And this goes for staff as well. So it's not just
yeah,
on the lawyer side. So that's the number one is just get a body in and not taking the time. You have to take the time. The interview process is not a 20-minute interview. You need to interview somebody. And again, we're so desperate for people. We want to interview them and hire them. So I have a client of mine that was recommended an admin person. Hopefully, they're not on the call. An admin person, and in 3 months, the admin person couldn't make a decision. Couldn't kept going back to the managing partner, and I'm the managing partner is who I'm coaching, and the managing partner says to me, "Why doesn't this person just do their job?" And I'm like, "Why did you hire them? You obviously didn't ask the right questions of this
right,
admin person." Well, on her resume, she had 10 years experience as an admin person. Well,
right.
because
Yeah,
she was desperate to fill that role. And
right.
so she ended up firing that admin person after 3 months and then having nobody in the role. And then she sent me an email that she finally hired somebody.
Well, at least it only is 3 months because it's
Correct.
easy for that to stretch out to 6 months, a year.
Correct. And it's even
Yeah,
harder.
yeah.
Exactly.
Then it gets harder and worse. Yeah,
Right.
exactly.
And so it's not doing thorough enough resume reading, not doing thorough enough interviewing, hiring just to fill the seat. I mean, those are really the most common pitfalls
Yeah,
that
yeah,
happen. And hiring a wrong fit, but that's because you didn't do a good interviewing.
yeah.
Happens. That's
Exactly. Well, and it's just hard. I want to, I've done a little bit of hiring, and I think it's just hard. It's
it is
even
hard.
when you do ask all the right questions and think you've got a winner, too often you don't. So
Well,
be ready for that.
let me share a red flag. Let me share
Mhm.
a true story personal to me. I hired somebody who came recommended from a previous boss who I knew personally, so recommended by from that boss. I had this person actually interview with 3 or 4 different people. I had this person stand in a room and do a presentation because I was hiring them into a role of professional development,
Hmm.
right? I was like, what more could I have done, right? I did all of this, and gave the person an offer. I was in a different state. This is before COVID, but I've always been a remote worker because it did exist before COVID.
Right.
Um,
Mhm.
um, and the first day that we were together, the first day that we were together, she sent a text message meant for someone else that I got. And it was
Wow.
really inappropriate. And
Wow.
instead
Okay.
of instead of saying on the spot, "I'm sorry, this is not gonna work out. We rescind the offer," because
Yeah.
we were doing orientation, that's why we were together. Uh,
Hmm.
I had this person as a nightmare for almost 2 years
Oh
because
my gosh. Yes.
once once I kept saying, "No, no, it was just an error. She was tired and it was late and yada yada." I gave excuses because I didn't want to be wrong in my hire. Hello.
Right.
I
Exactly.
know how to hire people. And then it was a nightmare because then I had to do the documentation and I had to do all the other stuff, blah, 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 blah. So so the red flags are how somebody shows up on their, at the interview. Do
Mhm.
they look professional? Are they acting professional? Though this person did all of these good things, right? Go to their LinkedIn site, go to their Facebook site, go to their Instagram site, see more about who this person is in their personal life. Now, some people have that stuff shut down, but if they don't, you can go and you can look and you can see more. And some of that will give you some red flag stuff. And this, by the
Interesting.
way,
Yeah. Hmm.
this woman in this 2 month, it wasn't 2 years, so like 18 months, she took a leave of absence. She got a doctor to write she needed a mental health leave of absence, and then was seen speaking at a conference by
Wow.
somebody at the law firm who said, "Oh, I just saw so and so speaking at the." I'm like, "Wait, they're on a medical leave and they're." She was using the firm. She was using the firm
Yeah,
to get
I
stuff that
would
she
say
wanted.
that's a red flag for
That was a
sure.
red. Yeah.
All right, we have only a couple more minutes here. I want to be mindful of time. Do you need to stop right on the hour, or can
No,
we
I'm good.
go a little bit? Okay.
I'm good.
So apologies, everybody. We're going to go a little bit over the hour. Hope you can stay for the conclusion here. We have a few more questions.
I'll talk really fast or less.
Yeah. Well, we'll do what we need to do here. So we're going to talk for an hour next month about retention strategies. Is there anything you want to say to kind of kick that off today?
I think we've talked a lot.
Yeah,
We've foreshadowed this enough. Let's save everything, all the juicy stuff for next time.
sounds good. All right.
Cliffhanger.
Stay
Got it.
tuned for
Right.
retention.
All right.
Now we're come back to, we've talked a lot about culture,
Yeah.
and now we're talking about like what, how does the brand play into that for the law
Right.
firm?
Right. And so your brand is the culture is how we are internally, and your brand is what the external sees. Right. So
Mm-hmm.
it's
Mm-hmm.
very much the same thing. All right. So they one feeds into the other. So if your firm is branded, and that goes back to what we're saying, like the big law, those
Right.
firms are branded. We know what these firms are like, right? In
Mm-hmm.
our mind, we don't really know what it's like unless we've worked there, but in our mind, we do. So this
Right.
is part of your branding for your firm, and this is your marketing department and all of that. What does the community think about you? What do they say? What does it say on Glassdoor? What does it say? What are employees saying when they leave? Do you do exit interviews? Do you find out? It's another thing I wrote a bunch of articles about exit interviewing. You find out a lot about your firm in an exit interview if people will be honest, which they're never honest. I could say never, that's a bad word. Sometimes they're not honest when it's the HR person who does the interview. If you use a third party person to do the interviewing, they're more
Mm-hmm.
likely to be more truthful. If you're known, like that firm that was a sweatshop, play hard, work hard, then people will come to you that have that culture of themselves, that value
Right.
of themselves. If you are known as a lifestyle firm, right, that used to be the 1,500-hour, 1,700-hour firm, then that's your branding, and then people will come to you because of that. And then if you demand more hours, that's not fair. That's what they'll say.
Exactly.
They'll say that
exactly.
that is not there. But also branding is the type of work that you do, right? If you are a community focused firm, you do family law, you do housing, you do real estate or
Hmm.
trust and estate work versus, you do corporate law. Even in your small community that you're in, you'll be known as a business law firm versus a, personal law firm. All that's your branding, and that attracts different people.
Yeah, I mean, just one thing I wanted to say there is a lot of times you'll see a law firm website that's like 100% client focused.
Yeah.
And I see that as a mistake. And and again, probably not very well client focused a lot of the time, because you've got another audience for this. Is all the people you want to come and work for you. What do you want to say to them? And this is true of your social media and other things as well.
And
So
but you're making a really good point that every law firm website should have a career button, and within that, talk about what it's like to work there, talk about your culture. If you've got that thing in the lunchroom pinned on the wall, your values, that should all be on there, and that's selling the firm to the
yeah,
potential candidate.
exactly, exactly. Easy way to help your brand there.
Yep.
Now, I was really interested in this question about measuring success and, how do you build in a process into this that so you can get better and so you can see whether what you're doing is working or not.
Right. All right. So this is different for different levels. So I want to pick on first year associates. If anybody out there actually hires first year associates, um, you have to look at their hours. A first year associate does not know how to practice law. The first 3 months, they're going to bill haphazardly and not very much because they're still learning the law. At the end of the first 3 months, you need to check in with them. Are you getting the training you need? Are you getting the mentoring you need? Do you have the tools that you need? Did you know that if you needed a laptop, we'll give you a laptop if they're not already working from home? And then you check in with them 3 months after that. So there's 6 months. And then you check with them a year. But not just check in with them, you look at their hours and you see who's giving them work. How much work do they have? This is where you will catch diverse attorneys, women not getting equal time as some other attorneys, right? And so you can catch some issues right from the beginning, and then a year later you can see everybody's hours are the same, hopefully because you've caught it. Everybody's hours are progressing the
Hmm.
same way. So that's a measurement of success because you're looking at their hours and seeing what they're doing. Another measurement of success is to look at your basically your longevity of your attorneys, right? In laterals, I'm going to go back to laterals here. You hire a lateral, this is a partner, lateral partner. It takes a year for a lateral partner to really get up to speed, to transfer their clients over, and to get an understanding of your firm so they can be enmeshed in it. Then they're practicing for the second year, and you're looking at their hours, and they're either going up and they're great, they're solid, or they're not going anywhere. And you realize, ooh, this might not be a good hire, but you can't get rid of them yet because you don't have enough. Then you're going to keep them that third year, and they're going to be like struggling or whatever. And then you're going to get rid of them. And so the average length of a lateral is like 4 years. So it doesn't, and so when you look at a resume, you talked about red flags. Let's go back to red flags. If you see a lateral that moves every 4 years, that's not because they want to be moving every 4 years. It's because it takes 3 years to figure out that they're not a producer. And then the firm takes a year to get rid of them. Do you see? So
Fair enough. Yeah. Hmm.
yeah, that's you're looking for people. So looking at your own numbers, are people's numbers going up? Do they hit the requirements, right, in a decent amount of time? Takes about a year for anybody to ramp up. Give them that time, and then are they leveling off? And this is what you're measuring, is you're measuring their hours. You can go back and look at your own files and see all your hires, when were they hired, when if they quit, how long were they there? Does it look like people quit within a year? Maybe you have a problem in that department. Maybe it's a
Right. Hmm.
bad leader of that department. So you got to measure. You got to measure, and only you can decide what you want to measure. But it's just like that partner that goes through assistants. Every 3 months you're hiring a new assistant. There's not problems with all the assistants. There's a problem with the partner. And we got to figure out what that problem is and fix
Fair
that.
enough.
They can hire. So I know we're time.
All right, let's I think see if there's time for final thoughts. We do have a few questions as well.
Okay. All right.
So first, your one piece of advice to the law firm leaders about improving their hiring process.
Take the time to do a real interview.
Yeah, that makes a
Don't
lot of
rush
sense.
yourself through it. Don't rush yourself. Yeah.
All right. Thank you so much. Let's turn to the questions that we got. The first one is for me, actually. So when we talked about overhead, does it include salaries? The answer is no in the way we're measuring it there. That basically you're producing, what you want to see is what resources are available, what profit is available to pay that producer, and with the overhead. So the way we calculated it, it does not include salaries. So now for you, Sharon, one of the questions is, what about asking for names of lawyers on the other side of cases or deals and then talk to them?
Yeah. You mean I'm interested in hiring somebody that was on the other side, I guess.
Right. Yeah, exactly. So you're looking for somebody in a practice area. Well,
Oh,
okay, you're working with them on a deal or on a
yes.
case.
Great. That's a great way to hire somebody because you've seen them in action. You
Right.
see how they are. And if they're obnoxious and whatever, then that was what you'd be hiring. But if they were wonderful to work with, even being adversarial to you, that's a great hire.
Right. Right. Exactly. Yeah. And that actually, my firm has hired quite a few people that way. Makes sense. So here's a great question. How do you build a culture in a small business law firm where everyone wants to work full-time remote?
This is there's so much written about this now. Um, it's an unknown how to build a culture in a completely remote environment, except for if you go back and you look in the tech world where they were already remote before COVID hit. And what are
Right.
the things that they did? So my daughter happens to work for a company that's completely remote and always has been and always will be. So they have retreats and meetings and they send things, fun things, and like everybody come to this meeting and bring the wine that they sent to everybody or the
Yeah. Yeah.
herbs or
Oh, I like
whatever.
that.
I mean, you have to make the conscientious effort. The biggest problem in law that the partners have with the all remote is I'm not training and developing my junior people because they're not here. Because when you are in a client meeting and the associate does a great job and you walk out and you pat that associate on the back and you say, that was a great job, keep it up. Or associate, let's talk about your confidence when you talk to clients. That's
Hmm.
not happening because you're not doing it immediately after. So law firms need to be and partners need to be more intentional in how they reach out, how they mentor, how they train. So how do you build that culture? Unfortunately, it's more through the partners, and they're the ones who don't want to take the time to do that. You can't ask the junior person to ask for the attention and the training and the development and all that. The partners have to do it.
Thank you so much. All right. Well, that's the end of the questions that we've got. Thank you for joining us. We're going to send you an email, which is going to link to more resources, so you'll be able to get the slides and recording here. Download the law firm financial report card, and we'll hope you'll join us in our free open community on best-in-class financial performance at www.leanlaw.co/learn. We've got all of our webinars for the last several months recorded, along with tons of other resources. We don't sell to you on there. There are a lot of peers and experts like Sharon on there to help you out. So we hope you'll become a part of that.
Thank you,
Um,
Gary, so much for having me. This was
all
a
right.
lot of fun.
Thank you, Sharon. I really enjoyed the interview, and thank you so much. And we'll do this again next month. So thanks, everybody. We are adjourned. So we'll see you next time.